Hello there, my adorable internet and you amazing creatures of the beyond. Welcome, welcome. Now, I suppose you have probably. Oops, I forgot to play this. I suppose you have probably seen the show called The Foundation, or just Foundation, from the Apple series TV show, something something. And I have to say, it looks really awesome. But it's almost nothing like the books. And I have read only the original trilogy. There are 7 books, if I remember correctly, because there's two prequels and two that happen after the Foundation. It's an interesting mix, but the series, well, Jared Harris and Ali Pace like blew it out of the water. They're like fantastic actors. They really know how to play their roles. But here's the main difference between the TV show, the TV show and the books. The books don't focus on the characters. The books are about the foundation. Well, foundations, plural, because it isn't just one. I'll go into spoilers. Actually, there aren't many spoilers because if you watch the show from the very first episode, you're being made aware of what's gonna happen to the Empire and how the foundation will be set, and it kind of goes from there. So everything is kind of laid in the first episode, but there is so much more to it than just that. And the books expand a lot on how the lore develops about this revolving foundation. Initially, it's just, well, the main focus is the first foundation, and I'll get to that in a moment. But the point is that so let's start with what is the basis of the lore. So there are two things set up by both the TV show and the books. So the first one is that there exists a galactic empire that stretches over the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. And the heart of the empire is on the planet of Trantor. And the second thing is the invention, though I would call it discovery, of the psychohistory, which is invented by its creator called Harry Seldon, played by Jared Harris. So Harry Harris. That was a nice coincidence there. So this is kind of the only name you have to remember because there's so many names in the books, but as I said, all of the characters are not important, including Harry Seldon, for a very amazing reason. He's let's say like all of the characters are just pawns that are being taken through the story, and we are seeing the events play out as them being the witnesses. But even though it looks sometimes like they're influencing or taking the story somewhere, they are just there to play along. But at the end of the day, the books revolve around various time periods, places, and different characters. So the characters are very easily dismissed. Even if those characters were not present, the events will still happen. So that is something to be taken into account. So I'm just gonna say it out loud. The main focus of the books is the fact that there is kind of no free will, and that everything is generated based on this plan, the Selden plan, which is created by the psychohistory. So the psychohistory is a type of science that uses advanced mathematics, and it can preview the future, but the possible future. And it kind of foresees the future at a very high percentage most of the time. So, as in the show, in the books, Harry is being Selden is being called by the Galactic Empire under the reference of treason, as he tries to explain that psychohistory previews the fact that the empire is going to fall. And the empire is around 12,000 years old or something like that. And it says that if this fall of the empire will happen, there will be 30,000 years of a gap before another empire comes back. And he can shorten this gap to 1,000 years if the empire invests all the necessary resources and manpower for him to make it so. In other words, to create the foundation, the first foundation. Which he does not say anything about the second foundation to the empire. We'll find that out later why. And well, it's kind of skeptical of the empire to let him do that. They do exile him to a planet called Terminus, where he sets the first foundation. Of course, he does not live throughout the events because he's human, but he creates a vault with a hologram, with a pre-recorded hologram of him, which comes out every few decades or so. Or actually, he comes out after specific events, which are called the Seldom Crisis. So the Seldom Crisis are big events that impact the foundation, and he comes out to kind of prepare the foundation for these events. Well, he's always kind of vague about what's going to happen, but he tells the foundation that this will happen and this will happen and so on. And the purpose of the foundation is to ensure that a new galactic empire is born out of the ashes of the former one. But there is a lot of things happening up to that point, including the fact that the empire itself tries to attack the foundation. And the crazy thing is that Seldon's plan has high probability of kind of plot armoring the foundation. So no matter what the crisis will be, the foundation is kind of set up in a safe place where every event kind of warps around the foundation but does not take the foundation down. And this is kind of premeditated, and basically what it says is that the plan is bulletproof. Well, as much as possible because it plays in terms of percentages. And it has to play out for 1,000 years. And the thing is that psychohistory develops into kind of religion, and its followers are called psychologists. But it's interesting because while the empire tries to overcome the foundation, and I'm already going into spoiler territory here, and they're trying to make this this show into an 8-season thing. Which I don't know exactly how it will play out. I don't think 8 seasons are enough for the way they're developing right now. We're already in season 3, and it's kind of slow moving based on. They're still in the first 200 years, which is what the first book is based on. But really it's very slow, and a lot has been happening in the first book, which well, okay, maybe by the end of the season 3 we will see a more impact on the empire. But the thing is that the works uh, of the foundation book cannot be quite this put into a televised version, because it would have to be very episodic and standalone. And the fact that they're creating these main characters to get attached and invested into, it's the basis of how you create a TV show. But I don't know, it strays too much from the books, and the books don't revolve around people. The people are not the center or the factors that make the events in the book happen. The plan is already set. And what's interesting is that um, I don't know, the idea of the book, of the psychohistory becoming a religion, is based on rationality and morals. So it's not fabricated, it's not something ambiguous, it's not something mythical. The evidence is there, so it can be proven, and it can be proven mathematically. So that's why this cult um, overcomes any other religion, because gods become irrelevant. And there are cultures in the books that worship the gods and had more primitive religions or traditional religions. They are easily wiped out and replaced by the psychohistory, and psychohistory is spreading, and not only because of the religion itself, but also because of the technology. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So um, Isaac Asimov, which is the writer of the books, I forgot to say about that, is basically um, focusing on the well, I don't even know how to put it because it's so complex. Although his books are complex, they're easy to read, and they're very pleasant to read. So I should say that he's kind of establishing his books based on the history of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was the pinnacle of the modern society of its time, and it inevitably failed. And people were afraid that if this empire fails, we will go back to being barbaric, civilization will cease to exist, and so on. But as we have discovered, after the Roman Empire, there have been gaps and changes and so on. And the Roman Empire fell slowly. It was a slow death. But eventually, new empires have arisen and have even become more modern. And the crazy thing is that this is reflected in the book with the current empire, and the fact that when this gap happens, you lose some of the technology. So, for example, this is a historically known fact: the Romans have invented concrete. And then, after the fall of the empire, it was forgotten, this technology, and then we rediscovered it. Of course, we have improved upon it and so on. But for their time, discovering something so revolutionary, it was amazing. And we were scratching our heads thinking like, wow, they were ahead of their time. And of course, I think they even inventing some primitive printing. And again, that was lost and reinvented. A lot of things were going around the Roman Empire. And this is a fact. When you have a thriving economy, a thriving empire, there are lots of potential new ideas that can be developed and can be revolutionary and change the way technology advances an empire. Of course, the same happens here, and after the empire becomes the enemy of the foundation, they try to overcome it, but then kind of the empire kind of impedes itself in its victory towards the foundation. But then Sheldon comes to the foundation and tells them it really didn't matter if the empire had a strong fleet to attack you or a weak one, because a weak one would have never overcome the foundation, which by this time has become more technologically advanced, on par to fight with the the empire. And of course, I'm jumping over a lot of events that developed the foundation up to this point, because the foundation, when it was initially created, it was based with scientists, and they didn't have a fleet, they didn't have anything other than their intelligence, and they used that in their favor to kind of include more planets in their starting empire. But things happen. There's different characters and so on. I'm not gonna go into that. Anyway, and he says that if, on the other hand, if the fleet of the empire wouldn't have been weak and it would have been strong, it would have posed a bigger threat to the empire, because it would have turned against the empire, and it would have collapsed the empire anyway. So the plan has backups to keep the foundation alive. So the plan was invented to for the foundation to succeed in this 1,000 year gap of, well, let's call it the Dark Ages. And after the fall of the empire, they start to become the monopoly and slowly grow. But then something unexpected happens. The There is a new threat arising called the mule. And the mule is a very interesting character. Personally, I kind of liked the mule as, well, he's evil, but he has his reasons. It's sometimes you're kind of rooting for the mule to defeat the foundation, because you can see that the foundation is also morphing into sort of this tyrannical empire. I don't know. It's the foundation goes through a lot of changes, and I think that empire, the initial empire, fell because it was stagnating, and the foundation is thriving and expanding based on the changes that humanity apply and trying new things and so on. Some of them fail, some of them succeed, but they're trying to adapt to new things, and they're not stagnating, so they're managing to push through. And the plan is kind of there to assist them. But really, they're kind of playing based on what the plan is telling them, or the plan is just a text that tells them this will happen and this will happen until the mule shows up. And when Seldon comes out during that time, he's like, "Well, I did not perceive that this um, mule guy will show up, and he was not in the plan. I don't know. He's an unknown variable." And the mule is a mutant. This is where the story starts to go from science fiction more into the fiction side, a bit on the border of fantasy, but, well, it's a pretty cool story. So the mule manipulates. His powers are to mentally manipulate people around him. So they like him and they subjugate to him. So he he becomes a sovereign over most of these planets of the Foundation. Well, a part of them, and he wants to defeat the Foundation at this point. And the Foundation is becoming desperate, but they know of the existence of the second Foundation, and they're seeking their help to defeat the Mule. And it's interesting how they defeat him at the end, because when they eventually find the second Foundation, or the second Foundation pops up, it shows how different the first from the second Foundation is. So the first Foundation developed technologically beyond what the first empire was, or the initial empire, I mean. But the second Foundation has developed on psionically. So they counteract the Mule by making him not desire to conquer the Foundation. And the Mule wants to go back and just rule over the planets he conquered, in quotes. And he kind of loses his powers, and a few years later he dies, and eventually the Foundation reincorporates those planets. So it's a really cool thing. But then the Foundation feels a threat because of the second Foundation, and they want to kind of eradicate the second Foundation because it goes against their plans, the Selden plan. And it's interesting that the Selden plan always used the first Foundation as a shield for the second Foundation. So in reality, the Foundation is the second Foundation. And the first Foundation doesn't really like this. I don't know if they really realize this, but it's crazy that both of the Foundation coexist and survive by the end of his books. So I don't know. It's a mix thing. It's very sociological. Of course, there are other books, and I haven't read those, and they expand on what happens after the Foundation and what initially drove the creation of the Selden Plan and the Foundation and the psychohistory. So yeah, a lot to unpack there. But as I said, I unfortunately the series is not shining on that department, and they're kind of taking the story in a different place, and I appreciate that. I like how they're acting and how they're applying good storytelling, and I don't know. It's interesting. They're kind of hinting that there's also some alien entity out there, but in Asimov's stories, aliens are not intelligent. Just there's a lot of alien life, but it kind of leaves it vague that there might be intelligent aliens. There's also AI in his story, but just like in Dune, they kind of eradicated most of them. So there are parallels to Dune here and there, but it differs a lot from Dune. But again, both of the works of art are just amazing and greatly. They're great architectures of science fiction, and I can see how it can inspire so many other people to go about their stories, because their stories were revolutionary when they came out, and they were out of the realm of what science fiction was about back then, because back then it was just like mad scientists, damsels in distress, I don't know, just simple stories. But when these guys came and created Dune and Foundation and I, Robot and so on, many other fictional writings, they revolutionized how science fiction was seen. It was so much more than humanity could perceive. And I think they also inherited this from H.P. Lovecraft, because H.P. Lovecraft dwells on the fact that existence is meaningless, and the vastness of the universe and all of the unknown past what is known to us as the universe makes us insignificant, but that doesn't mean that we are irrelevant, because we are relevant to our own existence. We still live these lives, we still go through them. We're just witnesses of all of these cosmic horror events that happen around us, and it frightens us. We do not fully know what's gonna happen to us. We could be stepped on by these entities at any point and they wouldn't even realize they destroyed us by accident. It's like stepping on an ant and you haven't seen it. So there is a deep, deep, deep story happening. It's very analytical and psychological and intriguing. And unfortunately, it cannot be touched by the TV series that Apple has created. They're focusing more on the human side, which is nice. I'm not criticizing it as a bad show. I'm just saying they could have done something so amazing. And I love the Dune movies that are coming out, and even the previous movies were okay because it really made humanity become so alien to us. They have some traits that relate to us, but we can see so many changes that do not feel human anymore. So maybe that is all science fiction is about. Well, guys, uh, thank you for assisting me in this crazy cute review. Of course, I highly recommend that you read the books. I might be interested to read the prequels and what happens after the Foundation. They're really well written. I like them. Also, keep in mind that Asimov did something very interesting, which I haven't seen in many books. He does not describe characters like in detail. He kind of gives you a feeling about the character or something that stands out about them. And he revolves around that. So this is a technique used by police when they're doing the sketches of suspects. So when a witness describes a suspect, the guy that draws the suspect doesn't ask information like what color were his eyes, what shape was his mouth, or something like that. He tries to get a feeling like what was the intent of that character, of that person. Was he showing to be frowning? Was he angry? Was he clenching um, his jaw? Uh, was he menacing? And that information kind of gives a rough aspect of how the person looks like. So the same happens in the books, which is amazing because your imagination is far more creative and can easily shape out the world. And the cool thing about this is when you're reading the books, you're living in there, but you're also um, just somebody that is watching things unfold and cannot do much about it. So, but in the movies, you're kind of set back because you're seeing characters doing and acting and having a mind of their own, and it's not really you who's in the character's flesh. So that's the big difference. I don't know. It really feels different. Anyway, also watch the show. It's a good show. It takes a different path, but the books I definitely recommend you reading or going and checking them like on audio form, because yeah, my reading is kind of poor these days, so I rely more on audio format. Anyway, you guys are awesome. catch you in the next episode. Bye, 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 bye.